Welcome back to another episode of Salmon Pals Go to the Movies. This is another Throwback Thursday review, and today I will be reviewing The Illusionist. And just a fair warning, there's going to be spoilers up ahead, so you've been warned. In turn of a century Vienna, a magician uses his abilities to secure the love of a woman far above his social standing. So let's begin with my first pro. This film deals with a quick magic history lesson and how it evolved. At the beginning of the movie, we see the magic is being presented as a mystical art from the Orient, and all the magicians in real life who would perform the magic during this time period would claim that they have gone to the Orient in search of the dark arts behind the magic, and they will return to perform for the audience and charge them for the show. And later on in history, Houdini would try to contact his dead mother by means of mediums and conjuring parties. But when he found out that he was being scammed, he went after the people who were doing this and tried to expose them for fakes, since they used cheap parlor tricks to fool grieving people out of their money with false hopes to speak to their dead loved ones. Houdini would not stand by this, so he tried to uncover them. All this can be seen in the film when Eisenheim, played by Edward Norton, is on stage performing his magic tricks. He begins with simple magic tricks that amazes the audience, and then later on he begins to conjure dead people and make the audience question if there is life after you are dead. So for showing this sort of historical part of magic, I really enjoyed this film. Next point, the film does play homage to different styles of magic and certain magicians. For example, the orange tree trick that was made famous by the French magician Robert Houdin. He was so famous that even Houdini used a variation of his name to begin his career. He paid homage to him by doing so. But there are many elements in this film of how magicians would work. Just like Eisenheim, some would hire foreign labor hands so they would not be able to reveal their secrets to the audience or people who would come and try to steal their tricks. Some would hire people who could not see, hear, or speak as a safeguard for their tricks. But just like Eisenheim, all magicians had to have a good backstory. They would have to make up a history of their past to greatly elaborate on their careers and basically present their magic tricks. So next time you see the film, try to see if you can spot some of these facts that are scattered throughout the film. Next point, the time period, clothing, and the set design that was used and how it made the film more interesting. So we see the news of Eisenheim spread throughout by means of writing in newspapers or letters or people just talking to other people. And so it happens when people talk to other people, they keep hyping up the story. So one may have seen a small bird appear out of nowhere in the hands of Eisenheim, but later he would tell another person and make it, instead of one bird, two small birds. And then next time it would be two doves, and soon he would be making flock birds appear. But he really didn't do that. It was just basically people spreading stories and elaborating on them and exaggerating. By establishing the time period with the clothing makes these facts more plausible. What I mean is, if the film would have been set in 1960 or more modern times, some people would have questioned, what, no photographs, no videos? But when you see the time period this movie was established in, it becomes more understandable, and then you leave it alone. So great use for clothing in the set and the time period. Also the decor in the buildings and also the furniture being used in the movie is good to establish the time period on stage. Last point is the acting. From Paul Giamatti as the inspector, his acting was amazing, and so was Edward Norton as Eisenheim. Both played so well off each other, one having the powers of magic and the other trying to discover his secrets. But then at the same time, we have the prince who's playing the side of logic. I noticed that the inspector was a logical man, but at the same time, he did want to believe that Eisenheim's magic was real, while the prince was always aware that there is no such thing as real magic, only illusion. But Eisenheim used the inspector's desire to believe as a tool to manipulate him. Since the start of the beginning of the movie, he began implementing the basic fundamental elements of magic, which is misdirection, and from here he established it and layered upon layer until the inspector got confused and he was able to be manipulated. And this made it even more fun with both actors' acting skills. It was just plain out excellent from my point of view. Now on to my cons. First up, if you ask magicians about magic in movies, they would say the best magic is the basic magic tricks, which is misdirection, sleight of hand, or one that has a really good story behind it to sell the trick. So having something that is simple makes it more possible with no movie magic to be set on a stage in the movie and make it believable. Now back to the orange tree trick. It is based on a real trick, but in the movie you see it being used with CGI, and thus many magicians will say they hate that in the movie. Seeing a trick but using CGI makes it so unrealistic that sometimes it's better to keep it simple. So yeah, some tricks in the movie are not possible in real life because they use CGI to make it more realistic. Just like the little kid that is being conjured and he's returning to the theater, that is total BS, and that trick cannot really be done in real life. So for something like that, I would just assume that the film would actually not show it but just have people spreading the rumors. Next con, the ending when the inspector inspector finds out that Eisenheim had plotted all this since the beginning. If I was him, I would question what the death of the prince would have caused in the political world. Since he was planning to overthrow his father, the king, he seemed to have a good reason behind it. It's more logical that the inspector would actually question why, and he would explore it. The prince was more open to new ways and political views, but he was also violent at the same time, and that was not well taken or well liked. So my question is this: did Eisenheim plot to kill the prince to keep the king in power when he found out about the prince's plans to overthrow his father? Was Eisenheim politically on the side of the king, or was he instructed by somebody else, maybe like Sophie, to keep the king in power? Also, Sophie was just the cherry on top of things. I would have liked if we saw the inspector inside at the end talking to the king, and then saw Eisenheim somehow come from around and be by the side of the king as he left, meaning that Eisenheim was part of the king's plan all along and fooling the inspector till the end. So my grade for this movie is going to be a 5.5 out of 10. The basic love story mixed with magic to obtain the love of a girl was fine and all for me. There was a lot of historical magic facts in the story and even some homages to some famous magicians. In the end, it was a decent movie to watch and kind of fun. So that does it for this review of The Illusionist. Please join us next time where we're going to review The Italian Job from 1969.
This car belongs to the Pakistani ambassador.
It does?
Typical, isn't it? I've been out of jail 5 minutes and already I'm in a hot car.
Charlie, I just wanted you to come out in style, baby.
Please like, comment, and subscribe. You can find our social media links below. And like always, keep watching movies.